Hey everybody, and welcome to Philosophy Friday.
Philosophy Friday. Let's do this.
All right, Paul, you and I we're here in Bangalore, India.
Yep.
We just arrived not too long ago.
That's right.
Sitting in a hotel suite right now, but on our way here in the taxi cab to our hotel, you were talking about motivation. Maybe can you walk back and maybe talk to the audience about kind of some of your thoughts with respect to motivation?
Yeah. Can I just start off with me talking about, remember I asked you, do you want to go skiing?
Okay, go for it.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this idea sometimes I think when it comes to motivation in the gaming industry particularly, okay? There's Joe Rogan, motivation videos and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and all these things and all that stuff. But I think motivation is typically described as somebody who, between waking up and going to sleep, spends a very little time for themselves, gets right to the computer, works a lot, does a lot of tasks all day long, sacrifices a great amount of time, and is overall just more of a worker. Yeah. That's what I think people would describe it as. And then I was saying to you that there's different phases in individuals' lives, and sometimes it's hard to get everyone in the same bucket. And when I was trying to ask you, I was like, do you want to go skiing? And you're like, of course I want to go skiing. I was like, do you want to go do all this? And you're like, of course I want to do it. And I was just trying to find your level of sacrifice. And then it brought up the topic of myself at my age and your age and your setup and my setup and all these different things. I imagine your home, the rooms, the children that you have, your wife. And then me having sometimes I have the night is calling me, Friday night calls me, the world, it's beckoning, Paul, come and grab me by the horns and just ride me, right? And let's go for this big youthful ride. And so I was just trying to discover where you are in your life and ask you, hey man, do you want to go dancing at night? Do you feel like you should be playing instruments? Do you feel like you should be running around and doing all these things? And we were discussing basically as founders, Avinash, myself, and you, we're just also different.
Right.
And that was kind of like that's like a brief description of where we were talking about motivation in general.
Yeah.
And so does a CEO, for example, who may come off to a younger guy as sort of a boring fella, a guy who has maybe his family do his laundry or prepare meals, or and then the mundaneness of waking up, saying, hey, honey, and going into his room and saying, I'm extremely motivated. But isn't there also the advantageous setup and habits of a more, different type of lifestyle? Or is there the younger guy who's super hungry and sacrifices the evening night, sacrifices Tahoe trips with his buddies and stuff like that? And are we all on the same playing field? And that's what I was wondering. Like, Can we all be, can we work with those different type of perspectives in life? And how do you say, I'm motivated, you're motivated, are you motivated enough? It's kind of, that's what I was just pondering and thinking.
I think this is an important discussion because when most people think about motivation, they think about it in very simple terms. It's like, hey, you guys are the founders. Of course you guys are motivated to work because you guys have a lot of equity in the company. And there's like this very simple way of thinking about why employees are motivated to work. But for me personally, I've always worked. And I've made a lot of people rich. I've made a lot of people a lot of money. And I didn't do that for myself. I did it for other reasons. And so as leaders of a company, I think when we think about motivation, it feels like we need to think about it in a better way. And fundamentally, I think there's a few different aspects to motivation. But the one part that I think about is to help people who are doing work because, we believe in work-life integration. We believe there's a lot of value that you gain from doing work. But I think one part is trying to help some people who are doing the work tie why they would work, the benefits they get from working. And then secondly is for us as leaders of a company to create a system of incentives that would reward people appropriately for the level of sacrifice and work that they do in the company. And I think that's a part where I think from a systems perspective, creating systems in the company, something that we need to think about more. And there's a famous quote from Charlie Munger that I talk to Paul about a lot, where Charlie Munger says, "Show me the incentive, and I will show you the outcome." And so I think it's two parts. When it comes to motivation of employees in a company, it's one, understanding for a certain employee what is their motivation to work, and for that motivation, making it stronger, or tying that motivation to, or letting them understand what that motivation is more clearly, or the benefits that they get,
Sure.
and then creating these systems to help them become more incentivized to work.
Yeah, I don't know how on topic or how I'm trying my best right here with this Philosophy Friday, at the Philosophy Friday. So motivation, creating a system for the company. Well, we're here to talk about gaming industry, right? We're here to talk about the gaming industry and motivation within that gaming industry. And I would say that I imagine, what's that guy's name? Ochocinco, the football player?
Yeah. Chad Ochocinco.
Yeah, Chad Ochocinco. Now, a football player must dream of football, They must dream of that. They must hit the bag thinking about how they're going to destroy the other team. And maybe they're not on their favorite team. Maybe they grew up loving the Raiders, but they play for the Bears or whatever.
Yeah.
And still, there's probably this extreme motivation for that. Now, when we talk about hiring people at the company, sometimes I worry that what youth want for the company is so hard to find that we're just never going to find it, because the industry doesn't necessarily create those people. Instead, the industry creates more of what I could describe yesterday as a union worker. And a union worker, in my definition, not that there's anything wrong with being a union worker, but I would describe a union worker in my definition like someone who works at like a Lockheed Martin or a bigger industry where they're like, I'm going to put in my 10 years and then, I'm going to get a house. And their fantasies, like, it's not the same as like a football player who's like, I'm going to fucking be MVP.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my own shoe. I'm going to do the coolest dance when I score. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be remembered. And even I was watching this interview with Dennis Rodman. He said he was so grateful that he's remembered because most basketball players are not. So when I worked with people in various companies as a lead, I would say like, all right, let's talk about your career. And I would listen to what they had to say and the kind of things they were saying, and their fantasies were really, really small. They didn't have a big gaming industry fantasy like I did. Some of the guys would say, I want to get a house and have my own bench press. And then I would say, do you care? Are you motivated? They say, yeah. But at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, they would leave. Yeah. And they wouldn't show the kind of stuff that I had. But in the companies that I work for, the all hands meetings and stuff, they'd be like, all right, guys, we're going to make something great. Every company says that. And they say, and if we do good, it's going to be great. But it's really industrial. It's very monotonous. And so imagine the individual thoughts in the morning. It's kind of like, well, how can I stretch out my morning really comfortably, take a nice route, ride my bike, put it in, lock my bike, get my work done and leave. It doesn't feel like the whole, I'm fucking motivated, right? And then throughout my career, I was lucky to be a younger guy in the startup, 2014, 2015. And I was kind of having these visions of not being a homeowner in the next 10 years, but weird, human thoughts of like me saying, oh, that's my game, to someone while they're playing it.
Yeah.
Or to see YouTubers going, this game fucking sucks, 10 reasons why I hate this game. I wanted all of it. I imagine 5-star reviews. I imagine shaking people's hands and people saying, oh shit, you're the guy that made that game and stuff. And so sometimes when I felt at my most motivated, I thought like how these strong industries work, the football industry, the basketball industry, they do find people who are like, they are likely to be extremely motivated for whatever reasons, but it has to do with those individual thoughts. So I don't often find somebody today who goes, I'm fucking motivated, man. Like, I'm going to make the craziest game. The UI is going to be beautiful. The systems are going to work.
Yeah.
Even if it was like, imagine Piggy Go, a little simple game. It flows so simply and beautifully. Imagine someone going, I'm going to make a game that flows beautiful. It's going to make Supercell's beautiful UI look like shit. Really hard to find that level of self-imaginations and visions because it's kind of monotonous.
Yeah, and
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, when I listen to you speak, kind of like, I think as a product manager, one of the things that I like to do is just like break things down. And when I hear you, it sounds like your motivation to some degree was financial driven, but
Sure.
also prestige. And so like maybe one of the things we could do is break it down
Okay,
because
let's try it.
so, and I've kind of written my list of things that I believe are the primary components of motivation for people. And the first and easiest is just financial. So why do you do this work? You do it to make a living, to get paid. And in some cases, you know, the Silicon Valley model of startups and equity have been driven on this financial model. You know, you work, you're successful, and then there's this big financial outcome that's possible. And so, and the reason, just to kind of back up a little bit, I think the reasons to break down the different reasons for motivation would be that when you're speaking to an employee or when you're, different employees are going to have different motivations. So by understanding the different kinds of motivations, different kinds of people, you could help tie the motivation to the work and potentially strengthen the motivation for them to do great work. The second is learning. And, you know, I would say that a few folks at Leela, that's probably one of their primary motivations. We've got, you know, a young product manager that's joined us, and I believe his primary motivation is because he wants to learn. He wants to become great at his craft. And so learning, self-development would be like the second key motivation that I often see. The third is, to your point, you want to launch a game and be able to show people this is what I've done. So the kind of prestige or accomplishment would be the third motivation, being able to show somebody something that you've done, and that prestige. And, you know, I know you're very proud of Game of War, I'm very proud of King of Avalon, but being able to create a product and have that prestige of accomplishment and have been able to do something is, for me, the third motivating factor. The fourth is just, for me, discipline, which is that for anything that you do, some people just have the discipline to they just want to do the work. You know, when I think about discipline, one of the guys I think about is Brett. Brett's not on.
Brett Novak.
Yeah, Brett's not here today, but we'll definitely be speaking to him more later. But, you know, Brett's all about discipline and just having like a steady routine. That's why he does the work. And the fifth, and I would say the reason for me, the primary motivation for me is what I call desperation. And desperation means that I'm doing it because I feel desperate. And I think there's different kinds of desperation. So for me, I'm getting older. I feel like I'm getting towards a later end of my career. I want to do, when I look back on my career, I think I've done jack shit that is meaningful.
Sure.
And so I feel like I'm running out of time to do something important and meaningful in my life. And so I feel desperate. Not only that, but, you know, both Paul and I have taken very small salaries relative to what we were making before in the startup. And so when I see my cash balance just going down every month, then it's like, you are desperate.
Sure.
When I was working at Fun Plus on King of Avalon, my wife was pregnant. I was doing everything I can to get back home and come home from Beijing. I was desperate. So that desperation, running out of time, running out of money,
Sure.
running out of opportunity, I think is the fifth motivating factor.
That's a big one.
That's
one of the bigger ones.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've worked with some guys. Oh, not to.
Yeah, no, please.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I've worked with some people. So as a designer, I felt like I worked on the same products, sat in the same meetings, the same, and I stayed the same. I didn't walk out halfway during the meeting. I stayed the whole time. I
Right.
worked on the same P&Ls. I work with the same PMs. I work with the same metrics guys. Talk about the same retentions that we were trying to get. I talked about the push notification services. I interviewed the same people. I flew on the same planes, stayed in the same hotels, and stayed the same amount of everything. But to be in a room full of the marketing manager, the product team lead, the chief of finance or whatever,
Yeah.
and the designer, I was obviously really underpaid as a designer. Now, that's just how the things work.
Yeah.
I can't change that. But I always thought, fuck, man, I see the marketing manager, electric bicycle, Bluetooth speaker helmet, vacations, 3 kids,
Yeah.
family life,
Yeah.
financial life, sexual life, relationship life, telling me, oh, I like to take jiu-jitsu and all this stuff. How was your weekend? They would ask me. I say, how was my fucking weekend? I work every day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I commute 2 hours from a place that I can afford to live.
Yeah.
And they would be taking the ferry across or Ubers and so forth. And so just from the designer standpoint, because I have a soft spot for all the designers out there, and I don't think it's wrong. I think it's interesting. I think I'm blessed to be able to have squeezed my way into some of those fancy meetings.
Yeah.
But I can say that I have had the desperation as a designer where I've said, let's say my common payment, which I'll put out there, my common yearly salary in the Bay Area that I could likely secure on an average is about $120,000. That's with, some people say, I'll say, I want to make 150, I want to make 200, and they'll say, oh, it's not in the budget, bro. You know what I'm saying? The other guys who have had my experience soar in 250, boom, plus. And so I'm in these areas like commuting, traveling, the cost of living, all that stuff. It feels like, fuck, my 70 hours, 60 hours a week is insane and it's capped. And so when it came to like studying design a lot, I'm getting older. I'm being 34 this year. And I know so much design that it's getting crazy. It's too many features, too much shit.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, how much more can I hang on to these games? I've never played the Pokemon Unite yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm not up to date on Roblox and stuff. And things are moving. And now I'm feeling this desperation as a designer. Like, if I can't make a game right now,
Yeah.
then I will be a 60-hour a week, $100,000 to $120,000 a year. And that's a great salary. I love it. But not at the same work ethic, not at the same pace of the executives busting 300, 400, right? I would rather work a normal job for 120 or find something with a little bit more balance. Because if I can't break out of this ozone layer, then I'm going to be in a long table full of people who are like, oh, man, my wedding, my jiu-jitsu class and stuff. And I'm going to be like, fuck, man. And you're just capped.
Yeah.
So marketing managers, CTOs, product leads, business guys, some CEOs, you notice in the industry there's very wild pay gaps.
Right.
And you can check at the lower end, entry level pay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a much more motivation. Not that money motivates everyone, but it's just a lot of hours in the gaming industry, and there's a lot of money that could be made. And oftentimes you're sitting right next to somebody who's like, they did it. And you're like, God, I'm fucking sitting right next to you. I want it too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I have had, I think if you drew a pie chart of my motivation, it's been like, how can I work at a company long enough to have my own apartment before they let us all go? Because oftentimes they let everyone go, unless you're at a big company. And then once I get that apartment, where am I at now? Am I going to be a homeowner? And then so the gaming industry for me is like, you can either go really fucking hard and explode into freedom, or remain in a monotonous Keurig, get your coffee, sit down, slow meetings amongst some people who have a wildly different salary rate than most of us. And so this is true for artists, QA, entry-level engineers, and so forth. We're all dancing around this semi-comfortable salary where the hours are very high. So for me, one of the things I've always wanted to do was try to piece together my designs and get behind strong, creative people like yourself in the executive level and tell them, I'm the crazy designer that's going to help this company. Please let me be a part of some of the success. And I worked like a founder most of my life until I became one, but I never was one.
Yeah.
I never had equity like a founder. I never had profit sharing. I never had, per diems that were that were similar. I never had any of that stuff, and that's okay. The biggest gift in my life was the work.
Yeah.
After all, that was it. I never made the salary that allowed me to have jiu-jitsu class, 3 kids, and a electric bicycle. But I have had the work. And so for me, I'm motivated to get into a position. Even now, my salary is lower than what it was almost 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm still at that point. I have some admirable things. I have a design team. I have a company under my belt. We have a product that I'm largely accountable for. And what's changed?
Yeah.
I'm in that spot now. And so that motivation to have that financial freedom is something I've wanted.
Yeah.
But there's more things there, but that's just on the desperation side.
And to some degree,
for me.
it sounds like when you were working earlier in your career, you were kind of, to your point, you were working really hard compared to some of the other folks. It sounds like maybe the one other motivating factor that I haven't touched upon, but seemed like that was your motivating factor earlier in your career.
It has
was
been.
Proving yourself.
That has been for sure. Absolutely, for sure. I've always wanted to come off as a worthwhile hire.
Yeah.
You know, when I came to Fun Plus, I remember hearing about someone else's salary who did something just like me. And
it was a lot more.
Yeah, it was a lot more.
I know who you're talking about.
It was $100,000 more.
Yeah. Yep.
And we both had similar things.
Yeah.
And they flew this person out first class.
Yeah.
And they flew me out economy.
Yeah.
And my apartment had broken water.
Yeah.
And I was getting major dandruff. And this other person was like, "Oh, I'm so jet lagged and stuff." And everyone was like, "Why don't you just go lay down and stuff?" And I was thinking, damn, man, the free-to-play designer route sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even when I had girlfriends at the time, they'd be like, "Can I see your product?" And I'd show it to them, and they'd be like, "Oh." They just don't understand it.
Yeah.
Because it takes so long to make a free-to-play game even worth a damn.
Yeah.
I felt like no one understood me. I felt like no result was meaningful.
Right.
The girlfriend would say, "Show me what you've been up to."
Yeah.
I'd show them some shitty build.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Oh." And I'd be like, "Fuck. No one is excited about me."
Yeah.
It's not like they're not like, "Wow, you worked on this big thing." It's like, God damn it. I want to work in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
You know, movie stars take their loved ones to the movie and they go, "Wow, you did such a great movie. Tell me about that." You know what I'm saying? The gaming industry, you work on a game, it launches, it's crazy as fuck, and then everyone starts talking about what's our next one. There's never a time where you're like, you can reflect and say, "Wow, I am a football player. I won a championship."
Yeah.
It's just next, and then the company's like later, or there's change of jobs. So I have wanted to have a really big flag in the ground, and to look at it and say, I came to the moon, or something, right? Like, I made it. And for someone to say tangibly, I liked what you did, but it's been tough. It's been tough. Nobody understood Game of War.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody understood Game of War. And nobody understood games I've worked on, MMOs. They're just like, that's cool. You know what I'm saying?
So just thinking about these motivating factors and just thinking about your own career, my own career, I felt like the thing that many companies don't do, and even we don't do yet, but I'd like to try to do, is if we were to understand our employees better and understand what their motivations are, that maybe we could help tie these motivations more clearly in their minds. The reason why I'm working is because of financial, potential financial upside, is because I will be able to learn enough to, become a lot better. And I think to your point, when you talk about some of the people you've worked with before who said, well, my dream is to someday be able to buy a house in the San Francisco Bay Area or something like that.
Which is, in my opinion, for an industry where you can make a video game that explodes and changes the lives of millions of people, is a relatively low goal. I mean, if you made an explosive video game, a house isn't really.
And part of I think what some of the things that we could do, especially here in India, is like I don't think a lot of people understand what's possible. They don't understand what's possible from a financial perspective.
It's like, don't
from
you
a learning
understand
perspective.
what we're doing here?
Yeah, like we have, I don't want to call anyone out in our company, but there are some people. I don't know if they realize that if they learn from some of the folks they're working with, like 3xing, 4xing,
Sure.
5xing, 10xing
Sure.
your comp is actually not that difficult.
Even if they dreamed of being a wildlife photographer,
Yeah.
it's like, well, our product is going to take roughly 2 years to build.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more if we slip hard.
Yeah.
And if we do a good job, in 2 years, you can go shoot all the wildlife you want. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Here's some interesting things I want to put up in this thing. Finding the individual motivation. Sometimes I've noticed recently in some of my team, there's a conflict of short-term and long-term sacrifice.
Yeah.
I've given these passionate talks to some of my teammates. Passionate, man. Like, you don't fucking understand. This is going to be the best delivery I could give. And literally on the Monday following, they're like, hey, I'm going to take a little bit like of a day here because I'm going to go on hiking and stuff like that. Take a bit of a personal trip.
Yeah.
Personal trip to go hiking. And I started to think, well, maybe this person is actually motivated by little personal hike trips. That's okay. I'm not going to be, giving him any of my equity anytime soon or for that or whatever. But like, let's say if I have someone who's motivated by the company's success and they do good work, like they work Monday, Tuesday, Friday, it's Monday through Saturday or something like that. And they're like, I can't motivate them on the outcome of the company, but they will do hard work to actually be able to go ride dirt biking on a Monday afternoon. That's interesting to me because sometimes I can't crack through that, like, hey man, this game could change your life. And they're like, can I go dirt biking on Monday? It's like, well, that's not the outcome. Maybe I can work with that. Yes, you can, but that's not what I was hoping for, right? I thought maybe they would say, I'm motivated to take this company to the max, right? And we're gonna go there. And they're like, yeah, I want to work really hard, but all that sounds good, but I just want to go dirt biking on Monday. So I noticed but at the same time, they also want to start their own company one day. They also want to make the big salary and stuff like that. So there's conflicting short-term motivation versus long-term.
Yeah.
I want them to go dirt biking and have fun, but can I offer them the same motivational package as the person who's sacrificing his dirt biking trips and his Saturdays and his Sundays for the company? It's like, that's a different reward. I'll give somebody way more for their motivation towards making the company a better situation than the person who's like motivated by their short-term intermittent rewards as opposed to this long-term sacrificial. So I want more long-term sacrifice, hopefully. But I can work with short-term desires too.
Yeah, and I think for our audience, I think the one key message I want people to take away is that I think it's critically important to understand these motivating factors for people and to avoid what I call like the financial reward fallacy. Because I've seen it time and time again that if you think that if you increase someone's compensation, equity, by a lot, sometimes even more than 10x, you expect, oh yeah, they're going to work so much harder. Bullshit.
No,
that's not the case.
It's not the case.
That is not the case.
It's not the case. Oftentimes, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So, with more money, and that's why I could say that's why going back to what I was saying, the best thing I ever got was probably the work.
Yeah.
If some of the companies paid me the money that I wanted to make, which some of the guys I've trained, so I've trained some designers, and we would go out to dinner, and they're like, "Let me buy you dinner and stuff." I took one of my designers out. Well, we went out together. He was a designer I trained in the past.
Yeah.
He now I think makes in the $250,000 a year. And this is someone I trained, and he's got a great apartment. I think a 6-year relationship with a girl that he wants to marry. And he's not really planning on leaving anytime soon his job because it's pretty safe and stuff like that. And he's like, "What's up with you?" I'm like, "Well, I sleep on the floor in my mom's house." You know what I'm saying? And I sleep, and I have fucking dandruff and I work all the time and and it just doesn't sound very nice.
Right.
But at the same time, there was now a moment where my wallet has a Wells Fargo card that's attached to a multi-million-dollar company and stuff like that. Yeah. And none of that's mine. None of this is mine. I'm just a moving member of it. So now he's like, "Wow, you started your own company and stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "What? Really?" And he's like searching it on Google and stuff. He's like, "How much did you raise?" I'm like, "We raised 2.8 in our seed." we're working on our Series A. And he's like, whoa, shit. And so I have felt like grateful for the kick in my ass. I have felt grateful for the work. And I do worry about overcompensation. I want to make sure that the designers on my team get what's fair. But I also have a soft spot, and I want to go, hey, bro, like, hey, dude, let's just put you, let's get you, I'm a nice guy, you know, I want people to feel good. I want people to get a good bonus and feel great. But I can say to your point that desperation for me has resulted in a better personal outcome that I wanted for myself, which was more control over the product, more freedom, the feeling of basically control, freedom, basically. And so I didn't get a lot of financial freedom, but I have some admirable career freedoms.
Yeah.
You know,
honestly, I think that if I think about all the motivating factors, desperation to me is the number one motivating factor. Like, because
that's what you think it is, desperation?
I think it's the number one factor.
Wow.
Now, because I think, so for example, desperation takes different forms, right? But like, let's say when I see my cash balances going down every month working, then it's not just me, right? Now it's like, okay, this is my family. Now, you probably, like, the normal person cares about their family more than anything in the world.
Is desperation tied to time and finances?
Yeah.
Both?
So for me, it's both
age,
financing, both that, and then, you know, I would say, like, so I would say that's like the most powerful motivating force in my opinion, and why I think a lot of startups generally are more successful than established companies, because a company with a group of people that are desperate are going to be so much more motivated to win versus other.
You remind me of something somebody told me before, which I don't really know about this because I'm 33, be 34, and they were telling me we were going for a jog, and I saw this guy and gal throwing sticks into the river with their Labrador dogs and shit. And I was like, dude, that looks so nice. He's like, you'll get there. He's like, but you won't be able to do what you're doing now when you're in your 60s. Like, what investor will, I'm like, hey guys, it's me. I got this great game idea. You know what I'm saying? Not that you can't, but is there ageism, in your opinion, is that true that, like, somebody has said to, I've heard engineers tell other engineers, dude, you're 30. When the fuck are you gonna do something? You know what I'm saying? Is it true? Is there like is there investors that will not invest in a 50 or 60 years old? Do you have to go hard while you're young?
I mean, look at a company like Y Combinator. They almost exclusively invest in very young entrepreneurs.
Sure.
And I think that. So I do think there's ageism. So for me, that's part of desperation. But getting off of desperation a little bit, and just going back to motivating factors, I think that another reason why a company like Tesla is successful is they not only have like the desperation, they almost went out of business multiple times. Elon put all of his investment in, just one company. So like everything is tied to his work was tied to his work at Tesla. But also, I think the other thing that helps was this sense of mission, right? Which is like, if we have a mission that is strong enough, that speaks to our employees well enough, that would be another motivating factor to work. So I guess, long story short, and not to ramble on too much, but I think the key message I wanted to speak about and speak to our audience about was essentially just this notion that, one, don't be deluded by the financial rewards fallacy. People are motivated by financial rewards and outcomes, but that's just part of the solution. Try to understand what all of the potential motivating factors for an employee is, and then try to make sure that they understand, by doing the work, how, and not to lie to any of the employees, but to actually have them understand what the potential outcomes are, and how, for them personally, how working at your company would satisfy some of those motivating factors.
I have one piece of advice, because so I don't know if I'm really the person to give advice, because I've had a kind of a crazy career, but a couple times there's been some designers who's reached out to me, and I've told them, they're like, I work on a match 3 game or something like that, or I work at this company and la la la, and I'll tell them, go into the CEO and ask him out for coffee. Like, tell them I'm gonna change your company.
Yeah.
Like, say, look, I know you hired me for my job, but I really, really want to give. And I would say, if you're interviewing somewhere, fly there, buy the ticket, go there, talk to them. And I would tell them to open up their mind to being motivated is okay.
Yeah.
Now, going up to their company today, it's really kind of weird and say, I did it at Sega. In fact, I'll give you a story. I said, I would like profit sharing. I just said it. I said, I would like profit sharing. And they're like, what? I was like, yes, I'd love that. And I was like, look, I'm going to be working so hard. And they worked so hard. I was so consistent about asking that they finally delivered me this piece of paper that was filled with all these terms. And it was kind of their best shot at whatever. And they're like, no one ever gets that. And I walked out, and everyone around me didn't have that. And I had this little like percent one whatever, and the dates of the profit sharing didn't even fall on the time in which the game was launched. It was kind of not even around the time. And so it was basically this weird, awkward thing that I tried to do. And I realized nobody around me had that. And everyone was like trying to feel motivated and stuff. And there was this lack of understanding that they could actually speak up for themselves and go for it, right? If you work at a company like a Zynga or wherever, all of the companies, the glue, the pocket gems, and you feel like you want more and you want to take it more. If you have seen my history, I've walked right up to Andy Zong for Fun Plus. I've tried to call the CEO of Sega. I actually asked to fly to Japan when they were thinking about canceling a game that I was working on. I've reached out to you a number of times and have developed this relationship. And I tell the people today that the people who push me the most, or the people who look like they're doing the most with their career, you got to go up to them, you know? And the fact that we're sitting here today, you used to slam me. You'd tell me, Paul, don't ever be late again. Because I would be like late on an average because I was treating the company more like a startup where it's a little bit looser. And you're like, never be late. And you treated me in some ways where I was like, man, fuck this guy. And I'd say, you want to go out to coffee? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You want to go out? Hey, I asked you to go shoot guns with me. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I said, let's go shoot guns. And I remember you're like, boom, shooting your gun and stuff. And I was like, I'm actually trying to get closer to some of the people who feel like they're making those moves. Yeah. So I would say that some of my guys, my design team, I go, hey guys, where's your ideas? We've been working together for years and no one sent me any ideas on the game. They haven't said, hey, look, there's this recipe design. There's this cool social collaborative building design. None of that. And they go, oh, and someone starts sending me shit. I go, you don't have to wait to fucking be motivated. You don't have to, there's never a time in your life where you're gonna arrive at where someone tells you, you're allowed to try. You're allowed to be a designer. You're allowed to be a fucking artist. You're allowed to be a PM. And so I feel like I just barely had a vague thought at some point in my career, a very, very vague thought. I thought, man, fuck this. I'm gonna go walk up here and ask for some shit. You know, I remember the first time I asked for an hourly rate that was like almost double than my hourly rate. I was like, I'd like to make this much. And the company was like, why? I was like, oh, well, because that's my rate. And they're like, okay. And I left there thinking, holy shit, I just got the hourly rate I really wanted. It's like, fuck, I need to get better at this. I need to start asking people, hey, do you want to start doing, why are we working on this game? This thing sucks. I want to fix this. And so I think some people may actually sit in an area where they don't even know that they can be a motivated employee. They can go right up to the CEO today, there's nothing stopping you and saying, can we talk about the funding process and all? What's the strike price? How many total shares are there? What do we plan on doing? How can I help get us there? I'm trying to help you. I didn't join this company to just collect a paycheck. I want to fucking make a massive difference around here. I've said those things. I've told a company this. I've said these words. If I can't make a difference, there's going to be a hole in the wall the shape of my body. I'm going to leave this place so fucking quick. I'm just going to bust out of the wall like a cartoon character because I'm trying to find a place where I can make a difference. And I tried to set the urgency that I'm the kind of person who's not here to fuck around. So let's do it. And I think that's some advice that I've given some designers out there. And that goes for anyone, that you can ask and can put yourself out there and just be like, fuck it, what am I waiting for? I'm going to see what's going on around this thing, start shaking things up.
Yeah. Cool. And I think maybe we can kind of shift towards, we talked about internal motivation of employees, and I think the part that we need to figure out better at Lila is not just the internal motivation of our employees, but then the sort of like the systems that we can create to help motivate employees to do the work. And actually just quoting Charlie Munger, and I've got a quote here that I thought was really interesting, is that Charlie Munger had a few famous quotes about incentives. And the first is, never ever think about something else when you should be thinking about the power of incentives. Another quote, well, I think I've been in the top 5% of my age cohort all my life in understanding the power of incentives, and all my life I've underestimated it. And never a year passes, but I get some surprise that pushes my limit a little further. And Charlie Munger also talked about a pretty famous example at Federal Express where basically the workers were being paid by the hour, and they noticed that all the packages, the efficiency of delivering packages was not very effective. And there's anything that they did, they couldn't fix that problem. But then one day they shifted from paying by the hour to paying by the shift. And then all of a sudden, everything got completed.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
So when we think about this, and I know I've spoken about this before, I think that one of the game companies that has been doing something interesting with respect to incentives, I don't know if they still do it, is like Lilith, but I've heard that they pay people to come in and work an extra day on the weekends. If you work Saturday, you work Sunday, you get paid extra. But I think that's the other thing that we're trying to think about now is, as we think about incentives to motivate getting work done, being able to accomplish more, being able to achieve our objectives, what do you have any thoughts, Paul, in terms of how we can create systems to also motivate employees to do the work?
I work with this guy named Dan Ross. He was a neuro-linguistic NLP expert, ex-Tony Robbins assistant kind of thing. He worked for Tony Robbins. He got his life coaching certificate, and he can help out with weight loss, cigarette smoking, phobias, stuff like that. And I think something like that at an individual base could be useful and interesting. Instead of getting the company like massages on Friday, you hire someone to come in who has a private conversation with an individual and says, what the fuck are you doing here? You know what I'm saying? Because I sought people out like that, and I would ask Dan, I'd say, I want to write a book, I want to make music and stuff like that, I want all this stuff, and he'd say, why? And I'd be like, because, dude, I'm gonna be dope, you know what I'm saying? And he'd be like, yeah, but why? Why do you need all that to feel good? Why can't you just feel good right now? He's like, why do you want to do those? You want to have love in your life? You want to find a woman, you want to have kids or whatever? He's like, why don't you just feel good now? And I remember saying, all right, fine, fuck it. And he's like, all right, cool. Now let's start on your goals, because you're never gonna arrive at a good feeling if you're constantly chasing your goals. Like try to feel good now. So he would do those things, and I've lost touch with all of his practices. I got to get back with them and stuff like that. But even sometimes I think, like you said, at the individual level, different motivations are different, and sometimes motivations are unhealthy. It's like, oh shit, the only reason I want to make a top grossing game is because I think it's going to bring me love. And in fact, I could have love today. Exactly how I look now, with my financial status now, with my time and schedule now. I don't have to, you know what I'm saying? And, so he didn't want me to arrive at somewhere and be disappointed. And so I think getting some kind of coaching at an individual level could be good, or having PDF work where PDFs guide people through questions and answers on what their motivation factors is at the base level. So identifying individual needs, eliminating unhealthy, beliefs, and then creating stronger visions and incentives around why the fuck I'm doing this, I think could be good. But I don't have any ideas on any like extra pay or, I've seen some good stuff like catering lunch and stuff, but it could be pretty dumb.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've seen at other game studios is just this promise that, hey, once we have a successful game, everyone's going to be rich, but there's no specifics.
Yeah, it's very broad.
And then once the game launches,
it's like,
and then everyone gets an iPad. It's like, wait, this was me getting rich? And then you see a lot of people that get really pissed off and leave. I do think that I think companies do need to be careful that if you're trying to build a long-term company, that the incentive system, I think, should be specific, should be fair, because otherwise you could get that success, but then you're going to lose a lot of good people.
Sure.
And I've seen that multiple times in my career. So I do think that the Lilith system sounds interesting.
Sure.
Or, we've talked about variations of that system for if people are working on weekends or extra, how we could potentially reward them for that.
I think we should continue to educate people on how valuable our equity program is. You yourself wrote up.
Yeah.
You're teaching people about ESOP.
Yeah.
Because we offer equity at Lila, and we want people to understand it. Was there some people who they didn't ask for it because they're just so new, they don't even ask for equity, and then we're just like, dude, let me teach you about it and just give you some. What the fuck? And so I think if we continue to remind people of the investment and how we're fair and actually better than other companies, that would be good for us. So let's try to keep that up.
Yeah.
And any kind of weekend program, I'm suspicious about it.
Yeah.
But I've seen companies cater full lunch, and it looks like a wedding dinner.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people cater wedding food in steel plates, steel containers, and people just come in and leave for like it's like, this is disgusting. Like just coming in on a Saturday should be a blessing because you're working towards that incentive. Like, so lunch on a Saturday, I think is cool for some of the employees who may be entry level, but then it gets a little weird. You got all the shrimps and the thing. You're like, damn, this is kind of crazy. Massages. I've seen massages. I've seen
I don't think that stuff makes the big difference.
I don't want a massage from fucking,
I would say probably like a bigger motivating factor system related would be responsibility,
Sure.
right? Like, so we've got a skill development matrix. If you do these things or if you build these skills,
sure,
then you can get a promotion, things like that. That's another.
Our wording too, our storytelling.
Yeah.
I told a designer recently, and I told you this before. I said, "Do you want to double your salary in 3 months?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I said, "If you worked 3 Saturdays of the month until we launched, that'd only be 3 months. So every month, on average, if you work 3 Saturdays, that adds up to 3 months. If you want to double your salary in 3 months, think about that." And he was like, "Oh shit." So I tried to like wrap better perspectives around it rather than saying, "Can you work the weekends?" I was like, "Hey, want to double your salary?" Because I believe, whatever he makes, if we had a top grossing product, I could easily double his salary. That's a true statement.
Yeah.
So sometimes the way in which I'm coming up with creative ways as a manager to actually put it a little bit nicer. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, like I said, do you want to have more work-life balance? And hey, what if I told you in the next 2 weeks, I'll get you a brand new fucking TV or some shit. I've seen people really motivated over TVs. I went to a guy's house and he was like, "My company bought me this TV." He was so excited, It's like, "Hey, how about I give you a brand new TV?" And they're like, "All right, what's up?" And I'm saying, "I don't know." And you say, "Well, let's meet this next sprint goal," or something like that. But ways to package things nicer rather than, "Let's just fucking go," that's not really going to do it. So I think he was actually interested about that.
Yeah, and I think he does have to be a mix of both extrinsic and intrinsic factors. And And I do think there's a danger that if you always have to constantly reward people just to do anything, then they get, it's like, okay, we need to complete this goal. It's like, well, what's my reward? We don't want everyone to always be expecting something to do anything.
You know what my team actually has asked of? Exposure.
Yeah.
They want me to make a video with them. They want to be known for their thoughts and
Prestige.
ideas. Yeah. So they're like, can I go on a YouTube video with you? Because I've made some okay YouTube videos that people enjoyed. And they're like, can we do a podcast and stuff like that? And so, yeah, so there's some of that too, like exposure, like posting their profile on LinkedIn. Like, we are so happy to have Mahir or Sergey or whatever in our thing, and then like trying to get it out there so they actually feel proud. Like, oh wow, they put me front page. I think Bandai Namco Barcelona does a really good job.
Okay.
If you check out their LinkedIn profile page, I think Naughty Dog does a pretty good job. But I noticed Bandai Namco does like every employee that joins, they post something about them.
Okay.
I don't know if that, or I saw another company showcase a specific achievement of one of their guys. They're like, our so-and-so received an award from a scientific community for their efforts in blah, 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 or whatever. So if we can keep track of like some of the extra things that they're doing, like let's say one of our project managers completes a extracurriculum course for their own personal growth. It's like, dude, we're excited that so-and-so has done this, and just like giving them thousands of views and so forth, helping their LinkedIn profile grow, genuinely caring about their own personal growth. I think that's cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, looks like we've got some stuff to figure out
Ton of shit.
on systems. But
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
as we develop that, hopefully we'll be able to come back and talk about it.
Cool.
Any other final thoughts?
If you're in a company now where you're not motivated, I feel for you. You're my people. Like, those type of people are my people. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to want to do great in this industry, and to be in a position where you can't.
Yeah.
And I would fight for it if you can. I would say just go for it. Start doing motivational acts. And go for it. That's my final little closing thought.
All right. Well, there it is. That's it.
That's fun. That was a Philosophy Friday, huh?
Catch y'all next time.
All right, cool.
See you, everybody.
Thank you so much, JK.